Peace be with you. Shabbat Shalom. Today we're doing the Parsha, Behar-Bechukotai. And it has a really interesting components. So one of the components of this, starting with Behar, which means in a sense low mountain here, is it lays out cycles of 7. So that's kind of fun because my birthday is 7/7, so I'm thinking, okay, cycles of 7. This is interesting. So what are the cycles of 7 that are just part of the whole Torah tradition and are like the fundamental number? So we have Shabbat, 7 days. And then we have 7 times 7 weeks, which we talk about the Omar from the time of second day of Pesach to the giving of the Torah, Shavuot. So that's 2. Then we have the Shemitah, which is each 7 years you stop. It's very powerful. Okay, everything lies fallow. All debts are returned. It's like a social, spiritual rebalancing. Everybody eats off the land. It's like a temporary Gan Eden. Then you have 7 times 7, and that takes us to the Jubilee, where everything is returned. There's a whole social setback. And what I mean is people who've sold their land comes back, and slaves are set free. It's a very profound shift in that way. So then we also have the 7, I'll put it this way, the 7,000-year cycles. So we're really completing the 6,000-year cycle, and the 7,000-year cycle is the 1,000 years of the Messiah. Okay? We're getting close. We're not quite there. We're getting close. So that's important to understand. Then there's the next cycle beyond the 1,000 years of peace, which is in a sense, eternal peace for all humanity, that everyone wakes up spiritually. So these are the cycles that we have been given. Now, in addition, you have the 70 in the tribe of Yaakov who come down into Israel. We have the 70 who are in the grand kind of judgment cycle, with one judge making 71, but 70 are in that cycle. So 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7 is all over the place. It's the cycles, in a sense, of humanity. In this case, many of the cycles, as I point out, are used to rebalance the society so no one gets excessively wealthy, no one gets excessively poor, and that it's a total restart every 50 years. That's pretty cool, because it does protect the poor, but it also protects the rich, because if you hold on to your riches, that creates an imbalance too. So that's Behar in short. Then we go to Bechukotai, which is very profound. And it basically is, if you follow my ways. Now, on the simple way, it means follow what the Torah says, follow this way of life, and all will be abundant. That's nice, and it's true. There's 3 key paradoxes in this, if we're really going to get it, as we take it to another level. Paradox 1 is, yes, if you choose, remember it's your choice, your free will choice. Paradox is it really a free will choice? Interesting question. If you choose to follow the Torah, then you have to follow all the ways of the Torah. That's one. Second, if you don't choose to follow the Torah, then many difficult things will happen to you and to the whole society. That's a free will choice? Well, not exactly, but that's a choice that got made which caused great disaster. And the third, which is in a sense most important, is everything is already pre-decided, and it's your free will choice to decide what you want to do. That's a real paradox. And I want to focus on that part of it because that's actually the key to how we can live in a high-level way in the world. Because the key is to align with the divine will. That's really the key to the whole point. And how do you do that? Well, there's a difference between knowing God and knowing about God. And the Baal Shem Tov and Rabbi Nachman of Breslov taught a very particular thing, which is meditation is 7 times more important than, I'm going to say prayer, but also kind of following all about the Torah mitzvot. That's a very profound statement. So why do they say that? What's the teaching here? If we're going to follow God's will, we have to be aligned with it. That's pretty reasonable. And to be aligned with it, we have to make that heart connection to the divine. And how exactly do you do that? Well, both of these great teachers made it very clear. What is that? We need, by the power of meditation, was what they really talked about, can begin to merge our heart with the divine will. That's how it works. Merge our heart with the divine will. Such a powerful statement, but it's the core of all the teachings. How do you follow the divine will? Merge your heart with it. You can't really do it from the outside. It has to be an inner experience. That's what they were teaching. That's clearly what I teach. So that's the work. So meditation becomes a very profound thing. But it isn't just meditation. It's keeping your focus on the divine at all times. So Shvidi Shim Lignid Tamid means keep the name of God in front of you at all times. See God emanating in nature. See God emanating in your friend. See God emanating in your spouse. See God emanating in all of creation. See God emanating. That's the key message. How do we do it? Again, when we're in meditation, we're able to make that connection that allows us to experience God in our hearts and then see God emanating throughout all creation. You can't see God emanating throughout all creation if one doesn't really have the experience of Hashem in our hearts. So that brings us back to meditation, but keeping the name of God in front of you at all times. Praising God, focusing on God. Keep that as the center of our communication and how we view the world. That's key, and that's why meditation and really prayer are so important. When I say prayer, I'm going to talk about the way Rabbi Nachman talks about it, which is your own heart-centered prayer where you are speaking to God. That's the key. So he would recommend going out in the grasses and meditating and opening your heart to God. So this is the key. How do we tune to the will of God? How do we become aligned to it so we know God's ways? By being God's ways. And then the paradox ends. Another way of talking about it is we attune to God's will so that our will becomes aligned with God's will, and God's will becomes the expression of our will. That's what we're talking about. That was really what the great sages taught. So again, it's back to focus on God and meditate and meditate. Now along the way, and this is really at the end in my book, Torah is a guide to enlightenment. There's two other things I want to say, is that when we live this way, we go in our consciousness from someone who's trying to perform the Torah to someone actually that merges with Hashem. Because that's where it takes us. And it is, by living this way, as God says, God will place the awareness of God within us and within the whole society. That's the promise that's made. And that means we have to do that, though, to make that happen, right? We have to make, wow, let's do it. And so it implies 5 will chase away 100, 100 will chase away 10,000. What it's saying, which is actually a pretty good thing for today's world, is a minority of God-centered people create a field of energy so powerful that we can, and I'm going to say we will, transform this world. That's how powerful it is. Now, there's one other thing that's involved. None of us are perfect. We always are missing the mark one way or another. And it becomes, as I point again in my book, it becomes very difficult to live in a way to say, I make a mistake, it can't be reversed. That is not the way it works. And for that, in the Torah, we have the principle of Teshuva, which is, I'm going to call it saving grace. Because what does Teshuva mean? Acknowledge when we miss the mark, we ask for forgiveness, and then with that, with God and hopefully with other people to where we've missed the mark with, comes redemption. So that's a very powerful process. It involves going into yourself and seeing what was off with me that I actually acted this way instead of that way. And when we see the egoic imbalance behind that, we're able to clear it. I'll talk about 0 point as a way of clearing it, because it's a powerful way. Actually, I'm doing a 0 point course in a week or so. But the point I'm making is it's a very simple way to access where you've missed the mark, see the egoic reason, and then make that correction. That's very cool. So fundamental in the whole Torah is, yeah, everyone's going to miss the mark. Yeah, no one's perfect. But we have a corrective mechanism. It takes people to be involved on both sides of that, or our relationship with God. But it's first us that has to acknowledge it, and then ask for forgiveness, and then redemption. So the whole system is designed for one thing only, to know God, and also, I'm going to say, for success. Why success? Because the more we come aligned with God's will, the more we're aligned with the purpose of all creation. The more we're aligned and in creating a world where everybody wakes up. So may everybody appreciate how important it is to align with the will of God, and the paradoxes go away. When you align with the will of God, you just allow it to flow from you. To do that, we have to make that heart merging with the divine. And we're given the tools, just what I shared with you. It's so simple. So, again, may everybody be blessed with this understanding. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Now you have an opportunity to go into meditation.